Hey, everybody, welcome. We have a great conversation here planned for you. I've got my good friend Jason Jacobs from Sunrun with me, rather. And we've been talking a little bit of a showdown here today, the difference between classroom-based instructor-led training and virtual instructor-led training. And we both come from kind of unique perspectives on this. So I'm really excited to chat with my good friend here. Jason, tell us a little bit about your background, how you fell into your training role. Tell us all the
Sure.
things.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Adam. My name's Jason Jacobs. A lot of people know me as JJ. I live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm a training manager for the largest clean energy company in America, Sunrun. I own Peacock Property Group, which is a real estate investment company, and also own learning experience design consultants. I dabble a little bit in voice acting, and most recently I started teaching Qigong and Tai Chi at my wife's wellness center, Embodied Wisdom Institute. Um, but yeah, at Sunrun, I help build and lead training programs that set employees up with the skills, the knowledge that they need to be successful in their roles. I've been in the corporate training space, I would say, for almost a decade now. Started at Samsung Electronics, then T-Mobile, and now Sunrun. Really just moving up that ladder over the years from trainer to instructional designer, and now most recently to manager.
That's fantastic. And so Jason and I got to know each other a little bit via LinkedIn,
Mhm.
started following each other, and then we had some sideline conversations and realized my background, I do virtual training in my role, both here at No Boring Training and elsewhere, but most of my experience is in the classroom, face-to-face instructor-led training. Jason, a little bit
Mhm.
different story, pretty much a pretty heavy dose of virtual training. And we thought, hey, what a great opportunity for both our audiences to talk about the head-to-head face-off of which is better.
Yes.
Which is
Yes.
when do you go down the classroom pipeline? When do you go down the virtual pipeline? And when do you mix and match? So, Jason, point counterpoint, let's just dive in, my friend.
Absolutely.
What are the benefits of virtual training if somebody's trying to decide between in person or virtual?
Yeah, I think when it comes to virtual training, some of the benefits I would say are the cost effectiveness, the scalability of it. It's much cheaper and logistically much easier to it's much cheaper and much easier logistically for both employers and employees to, gather 25 people remotely for 10 days than it is to do it in person.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So cost effectiveness and scalability is one of the main benefits of virtual training. I would say flexibility and accessibility as well. You can accommodate employees with physical disabilities. You can accommodate workers in different time zones anywhere else in the world, as well as socioeconomic classes. You
Mm.
can accommodate those employees so much easier by offering the virtual training option versus flying everybody in, doing it all in person. The last thing I would mention as a benefit of remote or virtual training is it's easier for those introverts to engage in the training class instead of being in person. They might feel a little self-conscious, might not want to participate too much. Things that are low risk, like using chat functionalities, they can have more fun by leveraging tools like Kahoot, Miro, Slido, Mentimeter. They can really participate a lot easier as an introvert than in a in-person environment.
Wow, that's fantastic. And even though I obviously am going to be representing the classroom-based
Yeah.
training, I
Tell us
never.
about the benefits of classroom training now, Adam. What do you got?
I like that point about accessibility, though. I never really thought about that before. So I gotta tip the hat there to you there. And I would think too, from the virtual perspective, even maybe uh, people managing family situations, they're taking care of an elderly loved one or daycare type issues or something like that. You don't have to get on a plane and fly across the world. So
Mhm.
I'll give you a tip of the hat, but I'm coming right back. on the classroom side of the equation, and certainly if you're going to do any sort of hands-on, deep level training with product training, technical skills building, some sort of thing where you have to have people working in concert with each other to learn a skill or employ skills, it's hard to beat classroom-based training. You can do some things virtually to gloss over that, but at a certain point, you're gonna have to touch, feel, taste, physical, tangible things, and I think the classroom makes the facilitation of that a little bit easier. I'd also say that, building culture starts to become a little bit easier when you're in the classroom. You're physically in the same space. You can have leaders from your organization, pop in sort of extemporaneously, group activities, things of that nature. I think are a little you can do them virtually, of course,
Mhm.
but having that CEO just randomly pop in the room and plop down and have that quick ad hoc impromptu conversation, I think becomes much easier in a physical type setting. And I think the classroom, you can keep people in a learning mode a little bit longer than virtual. I'm not saying you can't do it virtually, but just staring at that screen all day long is draining for sure. Now, it's no cakewalk in the classroom either. You gotta do a lot to keep them engaged, but I think just naturally, it's not you don't have quite as much drain on the brain as you do in the virtual setting, so it's a little easier to keep them engaged, keep them in that learning mode, than in perhaps a virtual format. So with that said, I'd say those are the benefits for the classroom, but if you're kinda trying to choose, do I go classroom, do I go virtual? When do you choose the virtual options, my friend?
Yeah, I think you made some really good points when it comes to in person. And I think what it comes down to when you think about should I choose in person versus virtual, what are the day-to-day realities of the job itself? That's
Mhm.
the question you need to ask yourself. What are the day-to-day realities of the job? Do they interact with others mainly through chats, emails, virtual meetings? Are they working out of shared documents or shared applications? Then remote learning or virtual learning mirrors their actual job more closely, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to actually train someone how to do the job, you want them to kind of mirror that actual experience as closely as possible in training so that there's no shock at the end of coming out of that safe space of training and into the actual role. They've been interacting face to face this whole time, and now they don't see anybody, for a week at a time. It's all over chats and emails. So that can feel really isolating. Now, if the job is blue collar, something that's hands-on, you're building things in a physical environment, you're working alongside of people every day. Yeah, that is best going to be learned. That's going to be learned best in person if you're working side by side with folks and interacting with folks in a in-person setting. If it's more behind the screen, manipulating data, interacting with customers and peers all over the world, remote virtual learning is going to be your better and more practical option, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah, I totally agree, and when you think about it from the classroom based, I mean, obviously, if you're gonna have some hands-on technical training like we already talked about, you
Mhm.
gotta go where the thing is to manipulate it.
Yes.
Workshops and programs too, you can do virtually for sure. But if you're going to do hey, we're going to pull everybody offline 3, 4 days, and we're really going to have this immersive learning experience where we're going to bring the headquarters staff in and maybe the leadership team and all these different people, an in-person experience maybe starts to make a little bit more sense. Yeah, you can do it virtually, of course, but why not have everybody, in that learning mode together in the building, access to all the things. An in-person experience makes a lot of sense in that place, in that point. And then I think there's something to be said for the connection piece. Uh, for sure, you could do things virtually to connect, but if you really want to have those casual conversations, the group activities. We're going to go out to dinner. We're going to bond. Let's go tour the facility and really get a sense of what's going on here as part of a program, a workshop, a longer experience. Again, I think the needle kind of starts to go back more over to the classroom side of things.
I 100% agree with that point, Adam. When we think about new hire training and onboarding, or building culture, really giving everyone, a foundational type of experience. Anytime you're level setting something or introducing some major change, or some major new skill that you want the entire audience to learn, that is a great example of when in person, and it will make sense cost wise to just get everyone in the same room, the same space, give them the opportunity to, do some bonding in person, team building. And yeah, I definitely agree with that point.
Yeah. Now both sides of our argument have their challenges for sure.
Yes,
There's
they do.
there's no walk in the park with either one. What are some of the challenges an organization should think about in terms of virtual training before they just say, yeah, that's what we're going to do?
Yes, such a good call out and such a good question, Adam. Thank you. The challenges of virtual training. One, you have really high potential for reduced engagement and interaction. You really need to have a trainer, a facilitator who's skilled with training in the virtual space
Mm,
to lead the most impactful and effective trainings. Otherwise, it's easy to turn cameras off, tune out, do other things. That's something I've seen happen over the years. I've been facilitating or leading teams that facilitate virtually since 2018, so pre-pandemic, and I have seen it over the years. There are levels to skill when it comes to training in a virtual environment. You can't just take everything that you did in the in-person classroom and translate that over to virtual. It doesn't work that way.
mm,
Um, Something else I would mention is technical issues and that digital divide, right? So the internet being slow, your laptop not having enough memory, slow laptops. If you don't have the right equipment or your equipment's set up improperly, remote tech instruction for those who aren't too tech savvy, all of those things can distract or delay from the actual learning at hand and really derail a learning experience for someone.
mm. Yeah, I think from the classroom side, we've already talked before. You got the whole cost piece and time investment, but even just the logistics of getting everybody in, inevitably somebody's flight gets delayed, somebody
Yeah.
gets sick, somebody has a last minute, family situation that's far more important than whatever training session you have. So you got all the juggling of that piece. Certainly, having an instructor who has gotten proper the training equally applies in the classroom as it does virtually. I think the other big risk, though, and I've seen this happen so many times, is that tendency to just try to cram in. We've spent, we're going to cram in everything because we've
Yes.
taken the time and money to fly everybody around the world. We've got 3 days, and buddy, we're going to Parkinson's law this thing to the nth degree. From 6 in the morning till midnight, we're going to be learning, and it just doesn't work. It just people get fried. Um, I think the last challenge before we get, I want to really spend a lot of time learning about how to make virtual work and leverage your expertise. But I think the last challenge of the classroom is is really it forces you to that sort of program format. Unless you're training people at the headquarters building and you're already in the headquarters building, that's easy. But if you're having to fly people in, it just naturally pushes you to that program piece when it just, whatever the topic is, just as easily could have been a session. It could have been an hour-long thing, but
Sure.
now it's a all day a deal because you had to fly everyone in. So there's some challenges there, but I don't want to drone in on a classroom piece all the way because you've got such a rich background in virtual training. So I wanted to really learn from you. If you're a company and you're really wanting to get a virtual program off the ground and get it
Mhm.
going, what are some of the things they should think about?
Well, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. You have to really do a analysis of the job itself, right? Determine if virtual training makes sense to that specific job or the skill that has to be learned. I mentioned if the person
Mm.
is, going to be in a physical environment, interacting with people face to face, it's better to be trained face to face. I worked with a company last year that's a cannabis dispensary in New Jersey, and they wanted to do retail new hire and sales training. Obviously, if you're going to be interacting with customers in a in-person retail environment, heck yeah, we did in-person classroom training versus doing everything virtually. So yes, I was driving each day out to New Jersey from my home in Pennsylvania to deliver the training. But it's because you have to look at what is the thing you want them to do. And if it's in a virtual environment, if it's something that's remote, yeah, it makes sense to start building out the training program in a virtual way. So if it does fit that that qualifier, let's call it, then it has to be, then you have to train your trainers. So if it
Mm.
does, then you must train your trainers how to facilitate virtual training effectively. You may need outside consulting. You may need some sort of train the trainer program. There are many out there. If you're training, especially during the pandemic, I know all companies were training virtually. This is your measure of whether you need outside help or not. Did your training go poorly during the pandemic, when you
You
were
you
forced
need
to go
help,
virtual?
everybody. There's the
If
bottom line.
so, yes, if it went poorly during the pandemic, you need some outside help. Reach out to Adam or myself. We can definitely get you the help you need for virtual training. So yeah, you need your trainers to be able to train effectively in a virtual environment. Then consider the tools that will be
Mm.
used to deliver the program. And when I say tools, I mean, Zoom, Google Meet, there are a plethora of others, WebEx. That's one type of tool. And also, what are those engagement tools? I mentioned a few of them earlier, like Kahoot, Miro, um, Mentimeter. Those are going to really be your tools for delivering a great virtual session. Then you need to build a detailed training learning experience. You need to build that virtual learning experience from the ground up, starting at the end, right? You need to focus on the outcome and reverse engineer it. I mentioned this earlier. It Do not try to do everything you've done in person in a Zoom. It will not go well. And then I would say the last thing I would do once you've built it out, you always should be iterating on the virtual experience. And a really good way to find areas for improvement, not only measuring the program, but I love the fact that it's easy to record every virtual session. It's a
Oh
little harder
yeah.
to record in-person sessions, right? You need a camera, tripod, all that stuff. It's really easy. So I record every single virtual training session. And that way you can also break it up into smaller chunks for micro learning videos, or even have refresher trainings that can then be completed on the job.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, what a great roadmap, and it's one of the
Thank you.
reasons why I was so excited for this chat. And like I said, I've done virtual training, of course, but that's your bread and butter, and so I really appreciate you spending some time kind of lining out. Hey, if you're wanting to get started with virtual training, here are some key steps to get you going. Um, Fantastic chat. We've had our point counterpart of classroom versus virtual. We've had some great tips here of how to get started. Jason, if people want to talk to you more about virtual training, how do they get a hold of you? Where can they find you? How can they track you down? You're a busy
Yeah,
guy, obviously.
I sure am, but I'm always open to chat about this. You can find me on LinkedIn. Again, it's Jason Jacobs. I think my LinkedIn title is JJ the Trainer, linkedin.com/JJ the Trainer. You can also find me at JJ at lxdconsultants.com. That is my direct email. In the future, we're going to be launching a lxdconsultants.com revamped website. If you check it out right now, you might not see it, but that is coming soon. Best way to find me, though, is on LinkedIn. Send me an email or send me a direct message on LinkedIn. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me stop by to chat about this today. Thank you, Adam.
Oh, thanks so much for taking time out of your day, my friend. You've got a lot of irons in the fire, so that you'd spend some time with me is absolutely appreciated and great. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can do so in a number of different ways. Of course, there's noboringtraining.com. There's the YouTube channel at No Boring Training, where we have conversations like this, plus practical tips to have effective training that produces results, not yawns. And you can find me also on LinkedIn at Adam Spact, where there are free daily training tips. So thanks everybody for joining us. Reach out to Jason and myself if you need that little bit of extra help to make sure that your training is really achieving the business outcome. And that's the whole point, helping people in achieving a business outcome. Thanks, everybody.